Alright, let's be real. RWBY Volume 8 was divisive for a wide variety of reasons. And among those many reasons, one of the kind that just slipped under the radar, really, was the Battle of Atlas, and by extent, the Battle of Mantel. This gigantic battle of magic, technology, and multiple armies was meant to be the show's biggest moment since the fall of Beacon. Everything was there. And yet, this massive fight still barely holds anyone's interest. And as an author of massive battles, I found myself really overall disappointed with everything that I saw in terms of the battle for Atlas. I was disappointed because all the elements were there, but they were underutilized. Salem came with a well-prepared strategy, attacking 2 cities from within, without, and on 3 different fronts, splitting General Ironwood's forces. The heroes were divided through their own infighting and had to coordinate and make uneasy alliances throughout the entire season, risking sabotage, and to put up a valiant effort to save the day. We had all the heroes, we had all the villains. It was a culmination season, bringing together so much world building and so many character arcs, all to one climactic moment. And what did we get instead? Penny dying after just becoming human, a rushed redemption for Hazel, awkward shipping moments that were entirely out of place, or an unforgivable letdown, and some of the dumbest leadership and military choices by the world's greatest general. And the showrunners tried to sweep these arguments under the rug by saying that Ironwood's semblance just made him bullheaded, which was never explained in the show. So yeah, I've got a lot to talk about. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And oh boy, I've got a whole new battle analysis for you guys right here. But actually more so than diving into all of the different ways in which this battle ultimately was a letdown, I actually want to take some time and try to work on fixing it. Now normally I don't do this simply because it comes across as really conceited for especially a novice author to be like, I can do something better than these established showrunners or other authors out there. But seriously, as someone who has written really big battle scenes full of all different kinds of strange magics, tactics, characters, all the things you could want, I have done quite a bit. I have failed quite a bit too, and I've learned from all of that. And I've been able to write some really amazing scenes. So I kind of want to take some time and have a look at this right here and see what I might be able to do to provide RWBY Volume 8 with the fixings it needs in order to get the most out of a really amazing premise and setup. So let's get a little bit here into this battle. Now, I've already done a full review of this volume, which I'm going to link so that way you can check it out if you haven't already watched it. And yeah, it's been a while since I've done a RWBY video. I've actually really wanted to tackle this one for a while, but just a lot of other things kind of came in the way. Work, books, and other really interesting story ideas. Plus, I had some people say, Lars, you might not want to make this right here because you're going to ruffle some feathers. Well, I think that we've had plenty of time to let the dust settle from RWBY Volume 8. Volume 9 is coming, so let's kind of take a look back and see maybe what can be improved upon. And should any of the RWBY showrunners come across this video, I know that you guys have some really big ideas for stuff to come later down the road. Maybe listen to another guy, some guy who has spent some time talking with military experts, someone who has spent some time learning military history. I am a military historian, and that's something then that you might be able to use in order to make a really awesome battle later on down the road, because that's what I want to see. I want to see RWBY succeed. So, that being said, let's actually dive here into the battle, really brief before I get into my fixings. Alright, so the battle for Atlas is one that's been set up for a very, very long time. Atlas is the powerhouse within the world of Remnant. It's where the best technology is, it's where the world's best hunters and the world's best military are all gathered together in what almost seems like a bit of a utopia. However, as we learn through Weiss's eyes and through her backstory, we learn that it's really not a utopia, that there's a lot of problems within Atlas and the city underneath it, Mantel. There's a lot of things that need to be dealt with here within these two amazing cities. But nonetheless, these cities are the center of true power within Remnants, and they must fall in order for Salem to be able to sweep across the rest of the world with her forces and gather up all of the necessary elements and powers to bring about the end of the world. And that's definitely what we learn here in the season, is that Salem just wants to destroy everything. So in order to do that, she needs to take on Atlas. She needs to retrieve the relic from within the city, and she needs to bring it down, killing everyone, making a grand statement to the world that she cannot be defeated, and improving her odds of destroying the entire world. Salem pulls this off by attacking the city from multiple fronts. She sends a grim river throughout the tundra, throughout the ice, to reach Atlas from a side that the island floating in the sky is unexpecting. She sends in Grim from all over the tundra to attack Mantel and separate the city's forces. And then she brings a massive flying whale and a bunch of flying Grim to crash into Atlas and unleash full destruction and chaos upon the city. And she's brought all of her champions. She has brought all kinds of Grim to this fight, and Salem has come herself. She is not leaving anything to chance, and she's going to take on Ironwood face to face. That is the strategy. She is just simply going to overwhelm Atlas and Mantel by attacking these two cities from all sides with overwhelming odds. There is a little bit of strategy to this right here. This isn't just simply the Zerg rush of just send a bunch of monsters in and hope that they overpower the enemy or that the enemy runs out of bullets. Instead, she is using a really good tactic of hitting the enemy on multiple fronts, splitting up their forces, and aiming for the citizens, which will cause all kinds of panic within the city, riling up the Grim even further, and just leading to an absolute frenzy of blood. Well, this strategy is going to work out pretty brilliantly because the heroes are divided thanks to the events at the end of Volume 7. We can quibble about how contrived they were, but you know what? Things are the way that they are. So with the heroes divided, they are fighting on all these different kinds of fronts. RWBY is trying to save Penny and is trying to bring a message to the rest of the world, letting them know about Salem. Yang, Jean, and Ren are trying to save the people of Mantel. Atlas is fighting Salem. And there's just a whole lot of chaos that plays out amongst these different scenes. It actually, there's a large part of the season where you're unsure of what actually is going on, and we get only so small snippets of the general battle that I will easily forgive you if you have no idea what's going on in the grander scheme of things, because we're so hyper focused on the two main teams dealing with this massive battle. One of the big highlights within this battle is the Hound, this specially made Grim that was made by using a silver-eyed warrior who goes in and captures Oscar and brings Oscar to Salem for interrogation and for some really weird ex-lovers meeting up again, let's just say that. And then the Hound is later sent to retrieve RWBY, to bring her to Salem so that way Salem can torture and turn her into some specialized Grim. This leads to some really great chilling scenes, some really great fight scenes, and just really good general stuff. Meanwhile, everything is just falling apart. Cinder has a really cool breakdown moment that shows a little bit about her character, and possibly some Pyrrha in her. And that would have been great to see more of, but she and Watts somehow break on into the main hub of communication, take over the security around Atlas, and just basically prep the city for even more destruction, chaos, and mayhem. And the teens finally managed to get back together using their combined powers and their knowledge. They break in, retrieve the relic, turn Penny human, create a whole bunch of doorways to get everyone out of Atlas and Mantel, and send them on over to Vacuo, which is sabotaged by Cinder as Atlas is overrun by the Grim, and the city comes crashing down and everything is just destroyed. And Ironwood dies. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The battle is honestly really straightforward, and that's not really a problem at all. What really is the problem is that what we get of the battle is very disjointed, and a lot of the choices that are made by the characters honestly make no sense. I could be here for an hour explaining in fine detail why Ironwood's decision to use a bomb on Mantel doesn't really make a whole lot of sense unless he holds more cards to play, because it's a very desperate move that he honestly doesn't need to make because he actually has way more options open to him. Also, why are these armies just throwing themselves at each other like medieval style? Not even medieval style, more like Brass Age style, pre-phalanx, because this makes no sense. This is just bad strategizing. And how the heck did we then suddenly get World War I trenches randomly there? Oh boy. And what about air power? Atlas has amazing air power. Where's the air power? Monty made a really big deal of the fact that air power was essential to the Atlasian army's overall superiority across Atlas, not just Atlas, but across Remnant. So where was all of that? I mean, they had the weaponry, they had the manpower, they had the technology, they had the dust. Well, it all just fell apart. So yeah, there's a lot of problems, and ultimately what we get of the battle is just, it's too abrupt, and what we see is too boring and too poorly coordinated. And here's the thing, I am going to say this, it is honestly clear, that the creators and showrunners have been eagerly looking forward to this season for so long. And with Monty at the helm, I think it could have worked out really well. Monty was a genius at eking out every last drop of awesome from every fight that he wrote and animated. And he just orchestrated wonderful chaos in the fall of Beacon. But I have to be honest and say that Monty was really the brains and the talent behind writing action within RWBY, and they've been spending seasons trying to catch up, and it really shows here in the Battle of Atlas and how it really didn't pan out the way it should have within Volume 8. So, like I said, I'm going to take out my editing tools, and I'm going to have a look at what could have been. I am not going to rewrite the volume, nor am I going to alter the landscape of this battle. The plot beats, as I've said, I've already addressed in my previous reviews, and I will let the work of the creators stand. I'm not going to take that away from them. I think it's really annoying when someone says, well, I could write the entire story better from scratch. Well, congratulations. Go and actually write your own story, my dude. So I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to see what I can do to really improve the battle for Atlas and Mantel. Furthermore, I'm going to point this out, Monty was the mastermind behind the setup for this battle, and because I respect Monty's work, I will accept the conditions that he set forth, even if the battlegrounds layouts within Mantel and Atlas aggravate me to no end. Oh, this could have been so crazy, but I'm going to work with what I've got. Given these constraints, how can I then make the Battle of Atlas exciting, engaging, and interesting, rather than simply a bland backdrop whose best moments amount, and I kid you not, they amount to less than a minute of combined footage? Well, it's really simple. I'm going to start with the very first episode. My first fix is this. No more stupid bickering amongst all the girls. This whole fight between RWBY and Yang should never have happened. No, these sisters are unified. We've already seen this. We've already seen what it's like when they don't get along. This is a bad moment. This was poorly planned. No. RWBY and Yang get along in this scene. Both teams come together to discuss what needs to be done because they understand that they now have Ironwood as an enemy, and the only way to beat him is by working together. On top of that, Salem is coming, and she's coming with a massive force that they can't take on by themselves or piecemeal. So they discuss things. The girls discuss things. Their goals can remain the same. That RWBY wants to get up to Atlas and send a message to the rest of Remnant, and Yang wants to save the people of Mantel. In fact, that makes really great sense. We need to coordinate multiple goals right here. And so they sit down and they talk about what do we need to do in order to save the people, save Remnant, and try to just bring the best conclusion possible to what seems like a hopeless situation. In order to do this, they confer with Robin's people. Robin's merry band was completely underutilized, and here's a moment for them to shine. As they are hunters and warriors who are not in Ironwood's pockets, and they have an innate understanding of Mantle, they understand the city's strengths and weaknesses. And Robin's folks explain to Yang and to RWBY that they need to get the people out of the elements as the city powers down and get them to a place of safety while staving off the Grimm. This will require that they have a tactical and fighting retreat throughout the streets. They are going to transform the streets into a gauntlet as they use Ren's power to save as many people as possible, get them to the crater, and slaughter as many Grimm within the streets as they can, and draw the enemy's attention away from the refugees as they get them to the crater. But the crater is not the final destination that is planned for the refugees. No, even though it helps them get out of the cold, in the immediate circumstances, the crater is a potential kill box. They can be surrounded on all sides by the Grimm, be overwhelmed, and the people will be slaughtered. This is where the goal of RWBY and her people come into play, because not only are they going to get up to Atlas to send a message to the rest of Remnant about Salem, they're going to try to secure lines of communication and transport to get everyone out of Mantle and up to Atlas, where the big guns are at, and where they can hopefully coordinate a better retreat, because out on the tundra, they are exposed and they will be easily overwhelmed. So we're going to have multiple goals going right here. This is going to require great communication, great teamwork from Team RWBY and from Jean and his people. And honestly, that's what we needed to see right here. We needed to see the characters grow up, stand up, make firm goals, firm plans, even if they're going to fall apart later on, and begin executing them alongside Robin's people. Man, great setup right there. No wasting time. We show these characters with their strengths, in their elements. No one is underutilized. The second thing that I would fix about this fight is that we get to see General Ironwood launch a massive air assault against Salem's whale. Now then, we see that she's brought tons of Air Force herself, so this is going to be a very desperate, bloody battle. And honestly, he is sacrificing his men to do this, which is an important element of playing chess and has a good connection to the opening of this volume that shows Ironwood alone on his side of the chessboard, as he has either sacrificed everyone or has been abandoned by them in his desperate bid to fight off Salem. Now, this particular attack would make good sense because, again, Atlas has a great Air Force. He knows that they're going to be overwhelmed. He knows he's sending plenty of men and women to their deaths. But by doing this, he can give his forces on the ground more time to prepare land defenses to receive the Grimm once they begin to attack Atlas itself, because he knows that its barriers will not hold forever, and that when that horrible time comes, they need to be ready to create a killing field to slaughter as many Grimm as possible and hopefully thin out their ranks so that way they can bring the really big guns directly to Salem and even out the playing field. That is the second thing that I would have done here in this volume. Ironwood launches an airstrike against the whale. Now, the third thing that I would change really kind of goes along really with what the show already does. And again, I'm not going to touch how the show's volume ultimately pans out, but I would give greater context and greater meaning to this next part, and that is when the Hound breaks through the fighting retreat to get to the crater and kidnaps Oscar. This prompts Yang, Jean, and Ren to be like, okay, we understand, we have to do this fighting retreat and everything, but this Grimm changes everything. On top of that, they have Oscar. Oscar is a valued friend, valued team member, and we know that something horrible is going to happen. The Grimm would not take him without real purpose. We have to catch him. So they break, they run, they fight the Grimm just as we see play out within the show. They lose him, unfortunately, but then, just as we see in the show, they discover the river of Grimm leading to Mantle, and they realize, oh no, there's going to be another attack. Salem has something hidden under the ice. We have to get this to Mantle, to Atlas immediately before they are caught off guard. And that would be very, very important right here, because that shows that Zhang, Yang, and Ren are using their heads and are thinking big. I'm sorry, but that's actually what they would do, because they've been thinking big all this time. The time of being weird teenagers is past. We're in Season 8. It's time for them to show us that they are truly huntsmen. Now, to my fourth point, and this ties in with the third one. When the Grim River is activated, breaking the Flying Island shields, Ironwood finds himself now fighting on two fronts up in Atlas. He activates his huntsmen. Not his general soldiers, he activates his huntsmen to go and address this new wave of Grim, as he has all of his soldiers lined up ready to receive the whale as it comes crashing onto the island. Now then, so we get Grim. So now we have Grim and a band of huntsmen fighting on the other side of the island. This is a perfect setup to show, because the show doesn't take advantage of this River of Grim really at all. This would be a great opportunity to show that there's a lot of chaos now within the city on the other side, where Team RWBY is at. And this would require that Weiss takes her friends on over to the Schnee Manor, and that they turn it then into their fortress to try to fight off the Grim and make a station where they can start regathering their forces, make a plan, and try to reconnect with their friends back down in Mantel. This would be then the perfect setup for when the Hound comes for RWBY. Now, point 5. This is a big one right here. Actually show the battle on the front with Salem. This is where we should have been treated to an entire sequence of brutal attacks and counterattacks from both sides, showing off the powers of the different Grim, showing off the strategies and the technology that the Elysian army has at its disposal. Ironwood and Salem are pulling out all the stops, but still holding back their deadliest weapons for the crucial killing stroke. Ironwood, uncharacteristically at this point, breaks first and resorts to his incredible bomb, saying the Grim just keep splashing out of the whale's mouth. I've been saving this for when we could just drop it on Salem herself. I don't even know where Salem is at this point, but we need to take out this whale. So he sends his best weapon on in to take out the whale. And really, that is what we should have seen right here. We should have seen Ironwood just descend slowly through the course of the battle into just greater despair and desperation. Now, my sixth point that I would change is this. Once the Hound gets into the Schnee Manor, which I wouldn't really change up anything that we see right here within this fight sequence, I think it played out really well, but what I would change is what happens afterwards. After defeating the Hound, RWBY doesn't go all catatonic, and after the experience, she tries to rally what little resources the gang has left and to acquire ships and an elevator in order to start bringing the refugees up from Mantel to Atlas. This whole thing where she's just all like, I've lost confidence, and this is what happened to my mom. I'm sorry, it didn't really work out really well. This was horribly timed. And again, we need to understand the bigger picture right here. The crater is about to become a kill box, especially with that River of Grim now pouring more and more Grim into the cities. The refugees must be saved. And honestly, that falls into character with RWBY. Yes, she's younger, she's a little bit more insecure, but she's meant to be the leader. Let's watch her be the leader, swallow those fears and those doubts, and then have later a very emotional moment with Yang as she shares her fears of what she thinks happened to their mother. And that would have been beautiful if it was placed at the right point in the story. The seventh point that I would change is this. I really, really love the whole sequence of how Oscar uses all of the power stored up in the staff and just blasts Salem apart, destroys the whale. Honestly, that sequence was beautiful. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more time dedicated to Hazel's redemption, but whatever. The whale is destroyed, and now Ironwood can consolidate and concentrate his forces on one front in Atlas, Ironwood is now in a position where he can threaten Team RWBY with the bomb that he now still has in reserves in order to get Penny back. And as a show of good will and force, Ironwood sends what few remaining ships he has down to Mantel, and he blasts away all of the Grimm that are coming in from all different sides, because now he holds air superiority. He relieves the crater in that moment, and now the crater is in his power. He has demonstrated that he is in control of the situation. He has the power to win the day, but now it will be on his terms, as he says, "Look, I still have a massive battle to fight, and I need Penny in order to secure Atlas's ultimate survival against Salem, because she will come back. In order to get that, I'm willing to go to any lengths, including killing all the people that I know you are trying to save. I have a bomb right here, and I can kill them all at once. I would like to save everyone. So, hand me Penny." This would have been a really, really great moment to make Ironwood seem like he is now the one in charge, and this would very nicely shift the focus of antagonism from Salem to Ironwood, who is now just desperate to do anything in his power to get the relic and use it to get Atlas out of this hopeless situation, because he realizes that Salem still has many, many forces. That Grim River is something that is going to be really hard to stop up, and Atlas is just now running out of manpower and running out of ammunition. They need to escape, so he needs Penny in order to do that, since she has the maiden powers. And this would then make it so that the standoff between RWBY and Ironwood later on for Penny's ultimate destiny right here, this would really make it very weighty. The stakes would be incredibly high. They are playing for all the chips at this point, and it would make RWBY's betrayal of Ironwood and how they bring him down just all the more sweeter. Rather than just being kind of vindictive and a little bit of a backhand, it would be a moment of relief, as now the second antagonist to this season has been brought low, and now it seems like the fortunes have shifted, the tables have turned, and now Team RWBY has all the power and all the cards, and they are ready to save the day, which will make the ultimate defeat and Salem's victory all the more poignant. Now, my last point of change for the Battle of Atlas is this. While the whole Penny exchange and debacle is going down, we need to have a good, clear montage of, or really good scene of events shown of how Watts and Cinder bring down this hard-won stability. And not just simply that they come in, kill some people, and suddenly Watts is now like, I'm going to press some buttons and everything is going to come down. Ultimately, that scene leads to nothing other than that Cinder has Watts really nicely cornered so she can murder him. And while that really is in line with who Cinder is as a character, it's a little bit of a waste. It would be really great to show how Watts and Cinder bring back the chaos, because now that Team RWBY feels like they have all the cards and everything, they need to now suffer a minor defeat as the Grimm rally and as Atlas seems to be shutting down. This means that there is a timer in effect. They need to move immediately to use the relic to create the portals and the doorways and the walkways throughout space and time to get everyone to vacuo. And this would actually make this whole moment like just even more like amazing, because you realize that these girls have come up with a brilliant solution to tackle what seems like an impossible problem. And this would give the audience just a huge sigh of relief, because after all of this emotional back and forth and this chaos, and where it seems like everything could just come now crashing down because Cinder and Watts are taking away that hard-earned victory, they have an escape. And that would then lead, of course, to the events within the space in between where Penny is murdered. Even though I did not like that at all, that's what the showrunners wanted to do, so that's what we're going to get. But now everything leads to this horrifying moment, because we've honestly earned the necessary relief at this point, and we now finally have a true sense of chaos, because it seems like the battle's been won multiple times by multiple factions. Everyone has had a chance to be on the top, and everything comes crashing down. They need to use this last grand solution, and then that's when Cinder strikes, and everything goes to hell in a handbasket. So yeah, that is basically the general outline that I would have for Volume 8 in bettering its many different fight scenes. It gives real meaning behind everyone's actions, and it makes the characters more competent. Because honestly, competence seemed to have flown out the window in this last season. A good battle is fought using strengths, weaknesses, tactics, and overall strategy, the big goals that everyone is aiming for. This is crucial because while Ironwood loses everything as foreshadowed in the opening, and Salem wins a gigantic tactical and overall strategic victory in her war to destroy Remnant, Team RWBY has their own strategic victory by saving everyone they could from Atlas and Mantel and getting their message out to the entire world about Salem and the need for unity. This would have been greatly highlighted if we had seen those goals specifically played out, or I should say explained, at the very first episode. Strategies made, even though things turn chaotic and go bad for the heroes at various moments, we fully understand what they're aiming for, and all the heroes are in agreement for what they need to do. And that would have just made it so much better. This contrast highlights the nuances of war, which is what this season was trying to get at. And it would have left the audience with more than just shock at Penny's untimely death. This would have provided far more action to chew on and to really enjoy, and it would have completely moved us from episode to episode without feeling some intense whiplash at all of the chaos of just simply going back and forth without any clear direction or goal from any side until the very end, because everything just seems to be falling apart. And that was one of the things that this volume unfortunately had going for it that it shouldn't have, was just the sense of aimless chaos. But with these fixes that I've proposed right here, it would be a more action-packed and a stronger volume, at least in terms of general plotting. So, what can we then learn as novice writers from my diatribe here about how I would fix the action in Volume 8 of RWBY? Well, there's some things that you need to know. One is this: your characters need to have a specific goal for being in any big battle. Why are they fighting this battle? What do they hope to accomplish? And how are they going to accomplish it? We need to understand strategy. We need to understand tactics. And the characters need to be shown as competent. If you want to have a story where you have a big battle and you want your characters to be incompetent, that needs to be shown well ahead of time. And that's one of the problems that we get here within RWBY Volume 8. We've seen that these characters can communicate, can overcome all kinds of problems, that they are far better than what they are shown to be. And it really felt like a step backwards for all the characters. And I didn't really like that. And I know that they were going for a darker tone, but you can still accomplish a really good dark tone and still remain true to who the characters are. And that's something you need to do. Even in a battle, there needs to be consistency. There needs to be consistency of character. There needs to be consistency of skill level. There needs to be consistency of strength. If you can hold true to that, you will then have a battle that even if you write it as all chaotic and messy, it will still be manageable for you and followable. I know it's kind of a weird word right there, but it will be followable to your audience because they will be able to understand the progression of events and they'll be able to follow the characters in a logical way through a very, very messy sequence of events. Writing big battles is amazing. You can get super creative with them, and I would honestly encourage you to get creative. Do some research, do some history, talk to some military personnel, find out about military tactics. One of the coolest things I've ever done actually is taking some time and sit down with my dad, who is an 07 in the Navy, knows a lot about military tactics, knows a lot about manpower, about technology and all this stuff. And I said, okay, here I have a fantasy setting. We have a fortress in a cliff. We need to fly a bunch of ships and we need to attack this fortress. So this is my battle strategy. What do you think? And then suddenly I'm getting asked, okay, so how many soldiers are on a ship? How much firepower do they have? What kind of technology do they have? What kind of training do they have? All of these different things. And those are a lot of details that won't show themselves on the pages of your story. Definitely wouldn't have shown themselves here in the Battle for Atlas, because those are just simply details that are the 90% of the iceberg that you don't see, but is stuff that the creators need to have in mind in order to lay out a logical fight, even in a fantastic fantasy setting. Because if you can do that, if you can merge the logical and the fantastical together, you will have a fight that just blows the socks off of people. It takes time. It takes research. It takes editing. It takes work. It takes making sure that things are consistent and logical. But trust me, if you can do it, it will make your battles phenomenal. And that's what I want to see in RWBY. That's why I want to see in more stories. Don't just simply throw massive hordes of men and monsters at each other and just they battle it out to the death. That's the Grunt's description of war. But we want the eagle-eyed view of it. And we want to be able to see why these battles are fought, how they are fought, how they are won, and how they are lost. And those are the kinds of things that will keep readers and viewers awake at night. They're like, oh, that was amazing. I gotta know more. What about in this situation? What if they had done this? Oh, this is so cool. What about in this situation? Honestly, that's what you want to hear after people have watched an amazing battle. I mean, just look at how people continue to talk about the destruction of the Death Star from Star Wars: A New Hope. That's been a topic of discussion for decades. Why? Because even with the silliness of fighting in space, it was a very well done battle. That is what we want to see, and that's what I want to see in RWBY in later volumes. So, again, if there's anyone from the production crew of RWBY who has sat down and watched this whole video, first of all, thank you for sitting through all this, and thank you for the work that you do on the show, but also please take to heart what I've said right here, because I really want you guys to succeed when it comes to the next big battle in the series. So, with all of that being said, if you're looking for more writing advice, especially for more battle analyses, then please check out our other videos here on Camille's Harem. You'll easily find them in the analysis playlist. And also, if you're looking for more writing advice, please check out our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We have writing exercises for all of you novice authors out there over at our Pinterest page, and we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of novice authors. Links for all of that and more are down in the description. Thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing. Until the next time, y'all, plan out awesome battles, execute awesome battles, and choose.